Once upon a time, there lived a young man named David, whose mind was not a sanctuary but a frantic, overcrowded marketplace. Though barely 25, he was constantly shadowed by an internal din, the phantom regrets of every forgotten yesterday warring fiercely with the towering anxieties of every possible tomorrow. This endless mental clamor stole his rest, dulled his spirit, and left him perpetually exhausted, a ship adrift in a storm of his own making. Desperate for solid ground, David heard tell of a sage. High in the remote Azure Peaks, where the air was thin and the mist was thick, resided an old master known only as the alchemist of stillness. Legend claimed he was a former scholar of the human heart who had forsaken the world's noise for the silent, profound wisdom of the mountains. David undertook the arduous pilgrimage. The journey itself was a trial of aching joints and self-doubt, until he finally crested the final snow-dusted ridge. Below, nestled like stones amidst moss, lay the quiet hamlet. At its edge, a vine-laced cottage bathed in weak winter sunlight. On its small veranda sat the sage, his eyes closed, his whole being radiating a deep, ancient calm that felt almost tangible. David approached, bowing low. The frantic urgency in his voice was stark against the mountain quiet. "Venerable master," he pleaded, "I beg you for the secret to inner peace. My mind is a relentless flood of thought, and I can find neither respite nor focus.
Show me the way to escape the prison of my own head."
The elder's eyes fluttered open, clear, deep pools that mirrored the serene blue of the sky. A gentle, knowing smile crinkled the corners of his eyes. "Peace is not a secret destination, young traveler, but a discipline of being," the sage murmured.
Come.
"Let me offer you a small introduction to this art." He led David into a small, immaculately kept courtyard. The sage picked up a simple glass tumbler from a wooden table and, with painstaking slowness, filled it with fresh water right to the very brim. The liquid surface was a perfect, captive plane, held only by the tension of a single, fragile layer. "Your task is simple yet demanding," the old man instructed, handing over the precarious glass. "Take this and walk the full perimeter of our village, returning to this exact spot. But I caution you, you must not lose a single, solitary drop." David accepted the vessel, his entire body instantly tensing to the gravity of the mission. He stepped onto the village path, where life flowed with its usual colorful noise. Children laughed sharply as they chased a chicken, blacksmiths hammered steel, the scent of wood smoke and baking bread drifted on the cool air. But David saw none of it. His entire world had instantly contracted to the shimmering sheet of water beneath his eyes. Every muscle was focused, every breath shallow and deliberate. The cacophony of the village, the shouting, the smells, the movement, faded into a muffled, indistinct drone. His universe was merely the small, silent space between the glass's fragile rim and the border he had to cross. Finally, agonizingly, he completed the circuit and returned to the sage. His hand was trembling from the sheer, intense exertion of his focus, but the water was intact. "I have done it, master," David declared, his voice a triumphant whisper. Not a drop was spilled. The sage nodded slowly, his smile full of quiet approval. "A truly commendable feat, David. Now tell me, did you notice the magnificent orange and scarlet cloak worn by the merchant on the bridge? Did you hear the melodic song of the woman drawing water from the central well? Were you amused by the small, clumsy puppy that nearly tripped you near the bakery?" David stared blankly, genuinely perplexed. "No," he admitted. "I saw nothing but the water. I heard nothing beyond the drumming pulse in my own ears. Had my focus strayed for even a moment, the task would have been ruined." "Exactly," the sage replied, gently taking the glass and pouring the water back into a jug. "And there is the only lesson you need. For that entire demanding walk, your mind was not permitted the luxury of distraction. You were neither dwelling on the failures that led you here, nor worrying about the long, uncertain journey home." He gestured to the empty glass, now harmless. Your awareness was wholly, fiercely consumed by the immediate, active moment. When you occupy the present with such singular intention, there is no vacant space left for ancient regrets or the specters of future failure. You were at peace, David, not because the world went quiet, but because for the first time, you successfully emptied the clamor within. David stood still, the profound understanding washing over him not as a shock, but as a slow, quiet dawn. The peace he had traveled so far to find was not a prize hidden in the mountains, but a deliberate practice he had failed to execute in the valley. He bowed deeply, his spirit lighter, knowing he now carried the map to stillness within his own two hands.